they'll lynch you. But he did, and he laughs at
West Ham Network, happy Wednesday. It's Holly, and I'm here today with a controversial one for you all. So I'm going to be covering one of the most debated topics between West Ham fans at the moment, and that is, of course, the question around whether or not Jesse Lingard should return to the club. Now, there are two things that come into this discussion. Number one, the emotional roller coaster that it feels like we've been on with Jesse over the years, and number two, the upcoming squad situation with AFCON halfway through the season. Now, for me, it's a real battle between the head and the heart. My heart says you should not be going back to an ex. But my head tells me that business-wise, it would still make sense to sign Lingard, providing we can get him on terms that actually work for us. So let's start by taking it all the way back to 2021. We signed Lingard on loan and he became a bit of a fan's favourite. He scored 9 goals in 16 appearances. So everything was great. He had a brilliant debut. It was all looking really exciting. We were obviously then keen for him to stay, but he chose to remain at Man United after the loan, where he was then barely played. So at that point, we thought he kind of made a mistake. He'd chosen the wrong side and he left. Then the following summer, West Ham made a move and it sounded as though it got very close until Nottingham Forest offered more money and he signed for them instead. Now, this move was definitely one that upset a lot of West Ham fans, as we felt pretty betrayed. He'd had a really good time under us. We'd offered him a decent amount of money and it felt like it would have been the perfect move for everyone. But then on top of that, he never actually said that money was the reason that he chose them. And I think there were some comments about kind of like wanting to play for their exciting team and things like that. So to West Ham fans, I know it didn't really make a lot of sense and it felt like he just turned his back and disappeared. Now, fast forward to today, Lingard has been training with West Ham, as we've seen for a little while, and he's a free agent, meaning he is available for a reduced price. That said, a lot of people on Twitter have been saying that there must be a reason that nobody else has snapped him up. And while his performances at Nottingham Forest were pretty rubbish, this is basically the reason that no one will want to go near him. West Ham are in a bit of a unique situation in that we know how he plays, we've worked with him before, and that we know he was effective in the setup that we had back in 2021. So that does significantly reduce the risk of bringing him back into the squad because we kind of know what to expect. However, it has also been a very, very long time since then. So while it's been reported that he is working hard behind the scenes, we have got absolutely no idea whether he would actually hit the ground running like he did the first time for us. Because I believe at the time he signed for West Ham originally, he'd not really been playing at Man United. And when we signed him, everyone was like, what are you doing? But then he did come out and perform. The question is he capable of doing this again? And did we just get lucky the first time around that it all sort of worked perfectly? Now, the reason that a potential Lingard deal is so significant at the moment is that, as I'm sure most of you are aware, AFCON kicks off in January. And as well as losing Lingard, there's the potential that we will have Benrahma, Cornet and Kudus missing from our team. There are options for us to obviously play someone like Fornals on the left, providing he stays. But essentially, we are going to be short on left wingers and we know that Lingard can play here. So if we can get a bargain for him to add a little bit of squad depth, would this be a move that you would like to see happen? Or is this one that you are just firmly, it's a no, it can't happen? So this is a decision that we're going to have to make very soon because we have to submit our squad to the Premier League on the 13th of September. So only, quick maths, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 7 days away. That's really embarrassing that I've just counted that on my fingers. However, it is not as clear cut as Lingard wanting to come to the club and us just saying, yeah, that sounds good, because there's interest from other clubs and a deal would still need to be agreed by both Lingard and West Ham. And I don't know how much he'd be willing to sacrifice in terms of wages and things like that. And on top of that, it's also relatively little is known about actually where his head's at. We've heard a lot of things about different offers. Wolves are reportedly interested in signing a free agent. And apparently there are 2 offers from Saudi clubs that have also been put forward. And they still have 24 hours left of their transfer window, so could take him. So, yeah, we just don't know how he's feeling about the move on top of everything that we've got going on at West Ham. Looking at the situation that we could face with AFCON, the competition runs from the 13th of January until the 11th of February. We're helped massively by there being a winter break in the middle of this, meaning we have 4 fixtures which could be affected by players being out. So, as I've mentioned, Lingard, Benny, Cornet and Kudus are the 4 players that we could be missing. But this does depend on how their respective teams perform in AFCON. They could drop out or fail to qualify. meaning we actually have some back a lot sooner than anticipated. And another angle of this to consider is that we could actually use AFCON to our advantage. So at the moment, it sounds really scary that we might be losing 4 players to it, but our opponents at this time are also missing key players. So should we have a little bit more squad depth and a few more players that we can play around with, perhaps with Lingard in there, perhaps not, we could actually benefit from this. For anyone that hasn't seen, this morning, Russie B did a brilliant overview of everything that you need to know about AFCON, as well as showing what the worst case scenarios could look like in terms of if we had players out for absolutely ages because they did so well in AFCON. So it's definitely worth a watch. Make sure you give that a look. He even tried out an all-new intro, which I'm a big fan of. So you don't want to miss it. Just go take a look at it. It was about 3 hours ago. But to give you a brief overview, we play Sheffield United on the day that the AFCONs begin. And they also have 4 players out, but potentially players that aren't as impactful on their squad, and certainly not all players in the same position. Then we have Bournemouth. They have 3 who will potentially be out due to the Africa Cup of Nations, 2 of their strikers and Traore. But here is where it gets interesting, because we play Man United after that, and they have 5 players out. They have Andre Onana, they have Eric Bailey, they have Majbri, they have Amrabat and Diallo. So they have key players that are going to be missing from their squad. And if we do actually have the squad depth or more players back in action by this point, this could be one that we capitalise on and actually make relatively hard fixtures easier for ourselves. So it's interesting. Then Arsenal, they've got Partey and Pepe out. So that's another one we could use to our advantage. But obviously, as this is towards the end, you never know who could be back by then. They could be back. We could be back. We don't know. On top of this, another thing to consider, the January transfer window opens on the 1st of January. So we would technically have 13 days to find somebody to fill that spot. With Super Tim Stuyton working his magic behind the scenes between now and then, this could be potentially something that could get done quickly. And we could be ready to make moves on significant players, some of which we may have even spoken with already this window, making it a lot easier to have that discussion and those negotiations. However, again, this isn't a position that is probably essential once AFCON has finished. So it could be an unnecessary expense if we're actually paying like 20 mil to get somebody of a decent standard in. So the big question is, if we can bring Lingard in now on a short-term deal at a cost that works for us and wages that are fair, would you like to see this piece of business done? Or is it an absolute no-go for you? That's what I want to know. So for me, I've gone back and forth, but I think it would be worth seeing what he can do and using him as a squad player. I'm certainly not saying we bring him back into our Premier League starting 11 or anything like that. But for the times where we are short, if we can get him cheap and if he's willing to work hard and understand this entire situation, he's not going to be starting in the Premier League for us. I don't see many downsides apart from the emotional hurt that I associate with him when he turned us down anyway. So I've really tried to put my pride to the side and look at whether I think it would be beneficial for West Ham to have Lingard. And I think it's probably worth the risk to see what he can do. I might be completely wrong and he doesn't perform, but we're not going to get anybody at a fraction of the price. The price is a big point for me as well, because if he actually wants like a big signing on bonus because he's a free agent, I don't think it works. He knows he likes the club. That's why he's training with us still. He knows he did well at the club. He knows that he struggled at United and Nottingham Forest, so it's not easy for him to just slot into any other team and do well. He probably doesn't want to go to Saudi. Part of it, I believe, was that he wanted to be further north near his kids and family and things. So when he left West Ham, that was a good move for him to be nearer. So I'm sure he wouldn't want to go to Saudi Arabia. So there are lots of things to consider. But yeah, it mainly depends on, can we get a good deal that's beneficial for West Ham? I don't want us paying a fortune for Lingard because, as we've said, there are reasons that he's not the ideal signing. But I know that this opinion isn't shared by everyone, so let me know what you think in the comments. And I'm genuinely curious to know the reasoning behind people's opinions too. So don't just tell me no, let me know what reservations you have. Or on the flip side, the circumstances under which you would be okay with his return. So there we have it. That is all from me for this afternoon. But I will be back later today with your Hammers headlines. If you're new around here, make sure you have subscribed to the channel. And of course, if you want to step it up a level and enjoy exclusive content and monthly prize draws, why not check out our membership? Thanks as always for watching. Have a brilliant afternoon. And until next time, have a good one. Come on, you Irons.